Every organizational change, regardless of its size, needs a transition plan. When I start to bring up the need for a transition plan with clients, I often hear questions like, our change is really small. Can't we just get started? Or we already have a project plan. Do we also need a transition plan? Or what's included in a transition plan? You may be asking some of those same questions right now as you begin to look at the changes in your organization. Starting a transition plan is one of the challenges for many leaders, often because it feels a little intimidating, but it doesn't need to be. In fact, you really only need 3.5 simple steps to create a transition plan that will enable healthy and sustainable change. Keep watching. Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Dawn Marie Turner, President of Turner Change Management and creator of the Readiness Mindset. A flexible transition plan is an essential element of healthy and sustainable organizational change. The transition plan is your roadmap for what is needed to guide people through the change process. It does more than that, though. It also helps give people a sense of stability as they move through the discomfort of the transition to achieve the intended outcome. So let's first talk about what is a transition plan. Your transition plan will outline all of the activities, the support that people will need to navigate through that change process and adopt those new activities and those new behaviors. Although a transition plan may include some of the same activities as your project plan, and the development of your transition plan can be similar, they are different. I did a previous video on the difference between a project plan and a transition plan, and I'll post it in the show notes below. You may be familiar with the term change management plan, and a transition plan is similar. I prefer the term transition plan. I prefer it because it reminds you that to enable healthy and sustainable change, we must make a transition from where we are when an event or a decision is made to where we need to be to achieve the intended outcome. It's also a reminder for you as a leader that it's not your role, and nor can you really manage another person's change process. What you can do is guide and provide the support and the environment they need to navigate through the change process and achieve your intended outcome. So let's talk about what are the 3.5 steps needed to create a transition plan. Step number 1, create a clear, concise, and concrete intended outcome story. Your outcome story is more than a vision, strategy, statement, or a set of goals. It's an essential element of every organizational change. What makes an intended outcome story so powerful is that it helps people visualize and feel the outcome before they embark on the transition. Therefore, it helps reduce the uncertainty, the fear of the unknown. It also helps you to see the opportunities that you may otherwise filter out. With an outcome story, you have a clear focus on your destination, what it looks like, and what it will feel like. And when you create a really compelling, concrete outcome story, your plan almost unfolds within the story. Within the story, you can begin to see the activities and the support that will be needed in order to live that story. Without an outcome story, you risk expending lots of energy, time, and resources to complete a list of tasks, activities, without any way of knowing what you have truly accomplished. Step number 2, identify the change areas. With a clear understanding of why change is needed and your outcome story, you can identify what is needed to live that story. Here, you want to identify the very specific activities, behaviors, and other changes that will be needed to make your new story the reality for your organization. I call these the change areas. To identify your change areas, it's helpful to ask 2 questions. First, you ask, what needs to be different about how we work or do things for our employees, our team, our leaders, or managers to work confidently, comfortably in the intended environment and live that outcome story? The second question, what needs to remain the same about how we work or do things for our employees, our colleagues, our team, our leaders, and manager to live comfortably, competently in the new environment and make that new story your reality? When we start to work with clients to create a transition plan and identify the change areas, we encourage them to think about the change areas around 4 broad categories. What those categories do is allow them to look at both the tangible activities and support that will be needed, but also the intangible support and activities and changes that will need to be made to live that story. We suggest 4 categories. These 4 categories represent the tangible and the intangible activities needed to support your process. The first category, physical changes. These are any of the changes needed within the physical environment. For example, relocating physical space or where people work, requiring them to be back in the office instead of at home, moving a desk, and also anything related to technology, new hardware, new software, or other types of tools that they may need to use. The second category, structural changes. These are any changes needed to your organizational structure to support and sustain the new environment. For example, it could be new reporting relationships, processes, policy, roles and relationships, responsibilities, all of the structural aspects of the organization. The third category, knowledge and skills. Any new knowledge and skills that people will need to navigate their transition, to unlearn old ways of working and learn new activities and behaviors. Knowledge and skill goes beyond the training. It may be knowledge about the transition, knowledge about the outcome story. It may be new skills related to specific aspects of that outcome story. The fourth category, behavior and habits. What are the new behaviors and habits that need to be embedded in your organization to initiate and sustain that new outcome? This last category is easy to overlook, yet it is one of the most important for ensuring you can sustain the desired outcome. For example, in one company, one of the new behaviors, even after training on the system, was that people would need to embed a habit of logging into a new system and an additional system every morning before checking their email. In another company, it was adopting a coaching approach for performance management. Step 2.5, prioritize. Now that you have a clear outcome and you have identified the change areas, it's time to prioritize. That's the half step. Prioritizing helps you to focus on those specific change areas that will make the biggest impact and allow you to achieve and live your outcome story. When you focus on those critical change areas, an interesting thing happens. Many other changes just simply seem to occur naturally. You begin to take advantage of collateral change. Collateral change is achieving multiple outcomes with one change. In a previous video, I talked about the value and importance of collateral change, and I'll post it in the show notes below. Step number 3, define the transition activities. This third step is about identifying the support and the activities needed to enable people to move through that process, to adopt those specific new activities and behaviors around those individual change areas and live the outcome story. When you're identifying your transition activities, it's important that you think about all of the activities. Many leaders, when we first start to do this work, focus only on those tangible activities like training, process redesign, rewriting job descriptions. However, the intangible activities are also important, and they're needed to get the value from your tangible activities. For example, engaging your customer service reps in conversations about the why, the outcome story, and the fit of the new customer service system will ensure that they're prepared for training, which will increase the effectiveness and retention of the training. That's it. 3.5 steps to create a transition plan. Although the steps remain the same, the amount of time, the level of activity, and the effort required for each step will depend on the size and complexity of your change initiative and your outcome story. One last thing, creating a transition plan shouldn't be an isolated activity, nor should it be just a few people deciding what others will do. To build a transition plan that people can commit to taking action to, you need the active involvement of the people who will do that heavy lifting. It's almost impossible to build a transition plan that others will act upon without their involvement. All right, that's it for now. I hope you found this video helpful. And if you did, remember to hit that subscribe button. If you'd like some help with transition planning, reach out. Let's have a conversation. See you soon. Bye for now.